After my husband's company became successful, he started acting different. He didn't hide the fact that he was seeing another woman. When I confronted him about it, he just laughed at me. "You don't make any money, so you should be happy I'm supporting you," he said. "Maybe then I'll think about getting a job." I told him I would find a job myself, and he just laughed and said I could do whatever I wanted. So I got a job at his parents' company, and that's when I decided to get back at him. My name is Karen, and I'm 34 years old. My husband Michael is 36 and runs a printing company. We used to work at the same place. I did illustrations and he worked in sales. We fell in love and got married when I was 26. Later, he left his job and we talked about starting our own company together. I wasn't sure what to do, so I talked to our business partner, Bob. We'd worked with Bob before, back at our old job. He was the CEO there and had his hands in lots of different businesses, especially dealing with advertising. Bob liked my illustrations and was keen to support us. He even put some money into our new venture. "I really like Karen's drawings," he said. "I'm grateful for her talent. Together, we'll make this company a success." I told Bob that I was on board, and we started running the company together. At first, things were tough. We lived in a small apartment, but once the company started doing well, we could afford to move into a fancy condo. That's when my husband asked me to stop working and focus on being a homemaker. "I'll find someone else to do the illustrations. I want you to support me," he said. I felt like I had to go along with it, but I knew I had to tell Bob about what was happening. He had invested in our company, so he deserved to know. "I'm really sorry, but I have to stop doing the illustrations," I told him. Bob seemed genuinely upset. "I'll miss seeing your drawings, Karen. If you ever want to start again, just let me know. I'll always be here to help." "Thank you so much," I said gratefully. So I started focusing on being a homemaker to help my husband out. But I couldn't give up drawing completely, so I started sharing my illustrations as a hobby on Instagram. People really liked them, and it became my little secret joy. Even though I stopped working, my husband's company kept growing. Our life got better too. He got a new car, and he started buying expensive suits from famous brands. I didn't really get why he needed all that, but I guess it's important to look good when you're the boss. No matter how busy he got, my husband always made time for dinner at home. It was something we promised each other. Even when things got hectic, he insisted on having that time just for us. We'd sit down, have dinner, and he'd tell me about the future plans for the company. I was happy just to be there for him and support his dreams. I thought it would always be like that. The company kept doing well, but I started noticing a change in my husband. He stopped talking to me about the company during dinner. "How's work going?" I'd ask. "Fine," he'd say, not really interested. I kept asking him about work, wanting to know more, but he snapped at me, saying I wouldn't understand because I'm always at home. It hurt to hear him talk to me like that. I tried to tell myself he was just tired and stressed. That night, he finished his meal quietly and went straight to bed. This went on for a while, and then he started eating dinner out. He'd make excuses about socializing or work events, but he used to always eat at home. Even then, I'd wait for him delaying my dinner, but now he'd just leave without a word. And recently, he wouldn't even bother sending an excuse. When I brought it up, he'd just yell at me. It felt like he was a different person. I started to feel like nothing more than a servant to him, and it made me really upset. When we started the company, we went through tough times together. But now, I felt like I was beneath even his employees. I didn't do housework because I liked it. I did it because I wanted to help him achieve his dreams. But he didn't seem grateful for any of it anymore. While my husband was away, I found solace in my illustrations. It was the only thing that helped me relax. As I kept drawing, more people started following me, leaving kind comments. Even Bob's name popped up among them. He offered to work together again, and just the thought of it made me feel hopeful. Without that hope, I don't know if I could have kept going. As we stopped having dinner together, a gap started growing between my husband and me. Eventually, I started suspecting there was another woman in his life. I smelled a different perfume on his jacket, one he'd never use. When I asked him about it, he just brushed it off, smirking like being caught wouldn't matter. For the first time, my sadness turned into anger. I was tired of being mocked and left alone at home, unable to do anything but chores. I felt anxious about being left behind by society. My friends envied me, but they didn't understand. Even my parents laughed it off as a fancy worry. I had to face this problem alone. Then, one day, my husband came home drunk. I took care of him and put him to bed, but I noticed a lipstick mark on his shirt. There was no way he'd have that mark for no reason. It was like a message from the other woman, a declaration of war. Finally, I had proof of his cheating. The next day, I confronted him with the shirt. "Where were you last night? And what's this kiss mark?" I demanded, pointing at the mark on his shirt. My husband looked surprised by the kiss mark but didn't seem bothered by my questions. "I was out with friends at a bar. It must have happened then, right?" His tone was dismissive. "You'd have to take off your jacket for that to happen. Didn't you notice?" I said I don't remember, he continued, suddenly standing up. His hand came down hard on my cheek in a sharp slap. Stumbling backward, I struggled to process what had just happened. All I felt was a burning pain on my cheek. "When will you get it? Who do you think is providing for us?" My husband's words pierced the air as he walked away, leaving me behind with tears streaming down my face. It felt like my husband didn't love me anymore. The harsh reality shattered me. After that, my husband's behavior became violent whenever he was unhappy. If he didn't like the meal I made, he'd throw the plate on the floor. "This tastes terrible. Don't you know what I like to eat?" he'd yell. "If you want to stay married to me, you better improve your cooking." Every time he erupted like this, I felt like I was walking on eggshells. "Wait, I'll make what you like," I'd beg, but he never listened. "I'll just eat out. Your food will affect my work," he'd say dismissively. I'd chase after him, desperate to fix things. "But you're never home or talk to me. How can I make something you like?" I'd ask, tears filling my eyes. Clearly irritated by my desperation, my husband clicked his tongue. "So do you want a divorce? I'm fine with it. I can manage without you, but you can't manage without me, can you?" he sneered. "You're worthless, not making any money. You're just living off me like a parasite," he spat out, his words cutting deep into my heart. That was the moment something inside me broke. The loving and caring husband I once knew seemed gone. "I'll find a job," I declared, my voice shaking with determination. "What? What are you talking about?" My husband laughed, his tone dripping with scorn. "Who would hire someone as useless as you?" I gritted my teeth, trying to contain my anger. I couldn't let myself lose control and end up facing more abuse. Since I couldn't fight back physically, I had to find another way to stand up for myself. "Fine, do whatever you want," my husband sneered. "But don't forget about your house chores with your measly income. I won't tolerate neglect." As soon as he left, I sprang into action. I hired a detective to gather evidence of my husband's affair. It didn't take long before I had plenty of photos showing him with other women, drinking, and going into hotels together. 1 week after gathering the evidence, I went to a fancy restaurant on the top floor of a hotel. I wore my best clothes, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place among the wealthy clientele. Bob was already at the table when I arrived. "I'm sorry for being late," I said nervously. "Don't worry at all, Karen. I've been looking forward to our meeting," Bob said warmly, motioning for me to sit. "Waiting for you was no trouble at all." Bob had been a big help when my husband and I started our own business. Now, he was the president of my husband's parent company. "Thank you for supporting us when we went independent," I said gratefully. "I was surprised when you and your husband decided to go independent, but since we've worked together for so long, supporting you financially was a no-brainer," Bob replied. "It seems like your company is thriving, thanks to your efforts." Bob's expression turned serious as he spoke. "But today, let's focus on you accepting my invitation, all right?" he said, offering a reassuring smile. "Yes, of course," I said, sitting up straight and returning his greeting. Bob had always been a big fan of my illustrations. He backed us financially when we decided to go independent because he believed in what I could do. He was also the one person who encouraged me not to give up my career to become a homemaker. We lost touch for a while, but he found me on social media and reached out, I explained. We started talking again through email and text messages. "But you always understood my illustrations so well, didn't you?" I asked, hoping to confirm our shared understanding. "I've always been a fan of your work, and I'm really happy you didn't give up on illustrating," Bob replied warmly. "But I never expected you to accept my offer to join my team." Bob had offered me a job as an illustrator before, but I turned him down because of my household responsibilities. Still, he kept reaching out to me, and it was only a week ago that I finally agreed to join him. In a conversation with my husband, Bob seemed hesitant at first, but then he looked me straight in the eyes. I hate to say this, but Michael's company has a pretty bad reputation. What? Really? I was shocked. Everything my husband told me about his job seemed positive, so this news from Bob caught me off guard. I've been working with him for a long time, but ever since the business started growing, the quality of work has gone down. Bob explained. Deadlines are missed, mistakes happen, and he doesn't seem to take responsibility for it. Is this reputation widely known? Well, with his company growing so fast, it's bound to attract attention. But now, it's the wrong kind of attention. There are even rumors about him getting involved with a shady group, Bob said, his tone serious. I had no idea, I admitted, realizing how little I actually knew about my husband's business. Trying to change the subject, Bob said cheerfully, anyway, you'll be creating illustrations for us now. No need to outsource anymore. It's a big win for our company. I really appreciate you being flexible and understanding about my family situation, I said, feeling grateful. It's okay. We don't believe in overworking our employees anyway, Bob said with a reassuring smile. And so I started my job with Bob. My role was solely focused on creating illustrations, so I didn't need to go into the office. Bob allowed me to work from home, which meant I could balance my work with my household responsibilities. Drawing, something I truly loved, brought me so much joy. It had started as a hobby, but now I was thrilled to be working on commissions. As I was working one day, I heard the door slam loudly. When I went to investigate, I found my husband standing there, his eyes filled with rage. You traitor, he suddenly spat out. I was caught off guard by my husband's sudden outburst. To think my own wife would steal my job. That's when it hit me. The reason for his anger became clear. Since I started working with Bob, I began getting contracts with other companies. Thanks to Bob's recommendations, I managed to secure deals smoothly, and most of these companies were partners with my husband's business. This was my way of getting back at him. It must have been frustrating for him to have jobs taken away by the very person he underestimated. You don't have any right to say anything to me. I've just been doing my job, and you gave me permission, I said calmly, meeting his rage with determination. My husband's anger burned in his eyes, but I didn't back down. Go ahead. Hit me if you want. I'll call the police, I declared firmly. The police? My husband's anger seemed to lessen a bit at the mention of law enforcement. My company is failing because of you. What are you trying to do? He shouted, desperation edging into his voice. It's not my fault, I replied calmly. I retrieved the divorce papers and handed them to him. We're not husband and wife anymore. Don't be absurd. You're divorcing me because my company is failing. You're just after my money, he accused, his words dripping with bitterness. I could have divorced you at any time, but I thought now was the right time. I have a lot of work now, and I'm making money, I retorted, showing him the evidence of his affair. My husband, hearing everything, fell to his knees and begged, please, please. The company is in trouble. I can't handle compensation or a divorce on top of everything. Please support me. Everyone else has abandoned me as soon as they found out the company was struggling. You're the only one who hasn't. I didn't listen to his desperate plea. I left the house with only my work tools and a change of clothes. The next time I returned was to pick up my belongings after the divorce was finalized. My husband's company was making mistakes left and right, and no one wanted to work with him. He spent his days begging to pay me compensation. Meanwhile, I started living on my own, making a living from my illustrations. I became quite wealthy, but I never forgot my integrity, using my ex-husband's actions as a lesson in what not to do.